Hi, this is Adrienne King, first final girl from Friday the 13th, Alice, and you are listening to WrestleHorror. Rah!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to WrestleHorror. Greetings, viewers and listeners. Meathook Jim here, the WrestleHorror podcast. With me, as always, Donnie Hoover. Donnie, I understand you took a little trip recently, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was pretty much one of the greatest weekends of my life. It was a dream come true bucket list trip for me, and it was very awesome, and I will definitely be more than happy to tell everybody about it.
So if it's pretty awesome, it has to either deal with wrestling or horror. And I'm betting it's probably horror. So let's talk about what you did, where you went, and what got you so excited.
Yeah, well, so everybody knows I'm a big Jason Voorhees fan, have been since I was a kid. Friday the 13th is my thing. That's my jam. And I've always been fascinated with Camp Crystal Lake, and I've always dreamed about going to the actual Camp Crystal Lake. But actually, for the longest time, I never even realized there was a real Camp Crystal Lake, to be honest. And then when I found out, I never put two and two together, like, well, there has to be, because they filmed it there. And, I never really thought of that. And then once I found out that it was an actual camp and an actual lake, then that made me want to go. So this past weekend, Terrie and I, we booked our Camp Crystal Lake tour. And it was a special tour and we had Ari Lehman, who was a previous guest on here. And then we had Adrienne King. And if you don't know, Ari was the first Jason. He was the boy in first Jason, and Adrienne King was the girl that he pulled into the canoe at the end. And I got her name, her signature right there, Jason and Alice, right there on the license plate. Got Mrs. Voorhees' license plate now. So picked me up some trinkets on the way. But yeah, so we got to meet them, and so it was obviously the time to go, and it was the first time that they had both been together at Camp Crystal Lake in over 40 years since they made the film. They filmed it in 78, 79. It was aired in 80, and then that's the first time they'd been together since the filming of Friday the 13th Part 1. And so it was a pretty exciting, moment for us.
So Did they recreate the infamous canoe scene?
Well, they did, sort of. It wasn't in the water, and like I said, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you probably saw me bombarding it with pictures and comments and videos. But yeah, they did recreate the scene, and but it was on the beach. It wasn't in the actual water, because technically, from all the stories they told us, the lake has risen the water level. So the actual canoe where they did the filming, one of the things was Ari didn't really pull first Jason didn't really pull Alice under the water and tip the canoe over. It was actually Tasso and Tom Savini standing on each end of the canoe, and they had a picture of them where they were literally like waist deep. And then when Ari come out and grabbed Adrienne, then Tasso and Tom Savini flipped the canoe over. That's how they got the canoe to flip. But that canoe now is like an extra 20 to 30 yards out into the water, and it's up over your head now. So, it's from where the water's risen. Yeah. And it's like some of the scenes, like some of the same famous scenes, like when Ned's walking along the rusty pipe in Part 1, that pipe was now underwater. Like that area of the camp is underwater. So they cut sections of that pipe out, and it was on display, and because it was all rusted away to nothing and all that. So, yeah, so we didn't get to go in the water, but it was still awesome, and they offered, photo ops and all that. So obviously I paid the money to have my picture taken. And I basically mimicked Ari, because he recreated his scene where he come up with his arm to wrap around Alice and pull her under the water. So I came from the other side and so yeah, that was kind of like a dream come true, little chubby moment for me. It's like, so yeah, so I'll say I don't mark out on a lot of things like a wrestling. I rarely mark out on a lot of stuff. Like, it's just nothing I've never done. But for this, I was like on cloud nine. I marked out pretty bad. It was kind of embarrassing, but I didn't care.
Everybody marks out to something, and it's all right. But, not only were you at the campground itself, but if I'm not mistaken, didn't you go around town to various film locations?
Yeah. Our tour was scheduled for Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. So we left out, and we live in Columbus, obviously, and it's in Hardwick, New Jersey, is where Camp Crystal Lake is. It's Camp Novi Bosco. It's a Boy Scout camp. And so it's in Hardwick, New Jersey, which is like 7.5 hours, 8 hours away. So we basically got up Saturday morning and left out real early. And and for the first time, Terrie can attest to this, first time in my vacationing career, I wasn't rushing. I didn't have everything planned out from start to finish. I didn't have a schedule. It was just like we woke up, because usually I'm like on edge and cloud, like edgy and grumpy, like, come on, we got to get going. We're running late, But for this whole weekend, I just let it go. Like whatever happened. And it actually worked out better for us. So anyway, so we got up early, Saturday morning, we left. We went to, what was the name of the town? It was in Pennsylvania. It was like right on the border. Stroudsburg, something like that. Stroudsburg. And that's where our hotel was. It was the only one closest to it that was still available. So we got to the hotel, and Terrie immediately was like, oh crap. Cause usually, the hotels are really nice, nice open area. This was right off the freeway. But it wasn't in it was near it was in a college town. So, college towns are kind of, run down a little bit, not the best shape. And then, so there was like when we pulled into the parking lot, it was directly off the freeway. So the road was like literally beside the freeway. And then, there was like weird people, and there was like a guy begging for money on the corner, and there was like weird people in the parking lot. So, and it was a quality inn. So I figured it would be a real nice hotel, but it like on the outside, it really wasn't presenting itself to be. so Terrie immediately got scared, like, oh crap, you're going to get us killed before we even go to Camp Crystal Lake to get killed. So we started there and got checked in, and it ended up being okay. Like, I mean, it wasn't the best hotel, but I mean, it served its purpose, gave us a place to lay our head for the night. So once we got all checked in and did all that, we were, I was like, I can't wait till tomorrow. I said, we need to go find out where it's at. I was like, I want to at least see, cause I know they won't open the gates until it's your time. So I figured, I was like, I just want to go, and there's a sign out front by the gates. I want to take a picture of that, and that way I know where it's at. I at least want to plan that part out. So we go, and then, one of the greatest inventions of all time, Google Maps on your phone. So, Google Maps took us right to it. And of course, they were getting ready to do a tour. I would say probably within the half hour, an hour. I didn't know, but there was like 8 to 10 cars already parked there waiting. So, and it was in like the movies, how it was like covered with woods and like a small road. So there wasn't much room to get by. So we're like slowly creeping past all these cars. And, then I see the sign. Of course, I have my little mark out moment, like, oh, Camp Blood. Yeah. Woo. I was like freaking out. So we did that. So then once we left there, we wasn't going to get out because, it was their tour time. We didn't want to interrupt anybody. So we went into town, and we just decided, hey, let's go to see if we can go into town, because we had watched a video on YouTube where this guy had recorded, like videoed his tour, and then all the stuff he did. And then he also recorded the sites around the town, where like at the beginning where they were in the town, and then doing all that. So I thought that would be neat too. And so I wanted to go do that. So we went into town, and I like Googled, like the diner, where was the diner in Friday the 13th part 1. And it told me where it was. And so it was in Blairstown. So we kind of just like went on an adventure and just started searching for stuff. So, we, like I said, I just put in Google Maps, I just put in Blairstown Diner, and then I know like also the place like with the by the National Bank where the tunnel is, where she was walking through there, and then where she was coming down the hill, around the corner. I know all that was in that potential area. And then the opening scene with the house, like I said, so where it says present day, it has the June 1980 or whatever present day, and it has that house in the background. So I knew all that was in Blairstown. So we just took off there. And another thing that I didn't mention before is me and Terrie was like completely surprised, because you think New Jersey and you think, New Jersey, you think Jersey Shore, you think, dirty water, you think dirty towns, like town like Columbus, big cities with like trash on the sidewalks and, and all that, So that's kind of what we had in our minds of what New Jersey was. And, we're big fans of, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge and Smoky Mountains. We're outdoorsy, woodsy type of people. And when we got into New Jersey, the western part of New Jersey, it was probably some of the most beautiful scenery and land I've ever saw. And it had the big mountains. It, of course, which I didn't know this, but the mountains behind Camp Crystal Lake that you see sometimes in the background, those are actually the Appalachian Mountains. And I didn't know that. So you could walk those trails from, he said you can go from Maine to Georgia, whatever. And so that, so it was in the Appalachia area. So like I said, mountains everywhere, had the blue smoke, just like in the Smokies. Just beautiful sceneries, tons of, lakes and streams and creeks. And so we were like, once we realized what we were in, we were in heaven. We were just driving down these old random roads, just looking for stuff. And they had like tons of old Victorian houses with like 2 and 3 story wraparound porches, and which that's Terrie's kind of, she loves those big, big giant houses like that. So, it was really beautiful scenery. So anyway, we get into Blairstown, and we're looking around for stuff, and even though it's not a huge town, you're still like, where am I? There's no way I'm going to find like this exact street that all this stuff was on, where Annie walked down and did all that, and so we find the diner. We just put in Blairstown Diner, and got the location, and we found the diner. So that was kind of a mark out moment for us, and so we did that, and that's where Steve Christie, where he was eating his meal or where he's getting some food and stuff when it was pouring down rain. So in the film. So of course, we took our picture in front of it, and we went inside, and then we got kind of put on a spot and felt like dumbasses, because we walk in and we're looking around, and they got like, some Friday 13th memorabilia and that kind of stuff. And they're like cash registers, like right by the door. So, it wasn't one of those things where we could just go in and look around and say, oh, this is cool. Cause we had just got done eating. So we weren't hungry. So we go in, and the guy's like, oh, you dining in or carrying out or what? So, we were like, we're just like standing there. But I seen that they had a bunch of t-shirts and hoodies and sweatshirts and all that. So then Terrie was like, yeah, well, we just want to get a shirt, a souvenir shirt, and kind of played it off. And which it was a cool shirt. It had, their diner on logo on the front, and on the back it had Jason's mask. And they played up the whole Friday the 13th thing there, the whole theme, so it was pretty cool. So we at least gave them money for the shirt instead of just going in and saying, hey, we want to take pictures. so but we left there, and then we went and moved on, and we were leaving there, and then the guy was talking to us about it, and so I just asked him, I said, hey, is there any other locations? I was like, we're looking for the tunnel by the old National Bank, where that part of the scene. And he pointed us right to it. He said, it's like, you're like a street away. And he's like, you go down this side street, make a right, blah, blah, blah. You're right there. And which, if he wouldn't have told us, we would have never found it, because like I said, it was literally like on a side street in the middle of town. So, thankfully we asked him, and he showed us, or told us how to get there. So, and like another goosebump moment, we get down and we turn the wrong way first. We end up on a one-way street. So we like turn around and get off of there real quick. Yeah. So then we come around the corner, and then I see the tunnel, that she comes walking through where the bridge is. And like I just started getting goosebumps. I was like, there it is, like freaking out. Because like I said, this is my, everybody's like Disney. I grew up on Disney. Disney's my, my thing. I love the princesses. I love, whatever. But for me, it was Jason, Friday the 13th, that. So that's what gets my blood going. So yeah, so I marked out and we were like, we got to park. So we found a parking spot. And then, like I said, if you've seen on the Facebook, we took, a bunch of pictures where we're in the tunnel. And then we took pictures where I was standing by the backdrop where the hill comes down, where she was walking down the hill. And then, took a bunch of those pictures. And so, and then kind of, there was we took a picture, like I said, the opening scene where, after the initial kill up in the rafters or whatever, where it says, present day. We took that, we took a shot of that with us, in the back, or the house in the background, the same shot, tried to make it as close to the same actual shot distance as the film, but we could. But they right in that area, they had like a waterfall type thing with a nice stream. And like I said, this area was just old town school. The buildings and stuff were updated, but they were still, down home with countries you could get. And, we were loving it. So, so we took pictures of the stream, and they had like a little conservatory area where that waterfall was. So we just moseyed up there and took pictures and walked around. That was in Blairstown. So then I told her, I was like, well, we got to find the cemetery. I was like, I want to find that rusty cemetery gate and take a picture if it's still up. And then when I remembered we had watched the YouTube video, the guy had went like November of 2020. So it was just, recently, and it was still up. Right. So, we wanted to, go. And actually it was February of 2020. It was February. So, it was still up. So we went and found it. So I basically, I couldn't remember the name that was on the cemetery gate. So I basically Googled, Friday 13th Part 1 cemetery, and I found the name, and then I Googled it, and Google Maps pulled it right up for us. So I was like, hell yeah, greatest invention known to man, So we went and found we found a cemetery, and it was in Hope, New Jersey. It was like maybe 20 minutes away. And so we got there and found it, and we pulled into the cemetery and parked. And then we both felt kind of odd because it was like in the middle of nowhere. There was some houses and stuff in the area now. In the film, and there wasn't. It was just all land. But now there's houses, and across from it, like if you're looking at the entrance to the gate, if you were behind, looking at the gate, behind you was like apartments. Like maybe like a four hotel, like a 4 apartment building, like a duplex or quad, whatever. And they had like all of them had their windows open. So I'm like, man, I started feeling like weird and stuff. Like, I know people might be looking out their windows, and we're walking through this cemetery, and all we're trying to do is get Friday the 13th pictures. And I know people do it all the time, but then I was like, is this kind of disrespectful, like walking through the cemetery and to get a picture for Friday the 13th. So I was telling Terrie, like, I feel kind of awkward. I think this is kind of rude a little bit. And so she's like talking to all the headstones as we're going by. She's like, hey, how you guys doing? Sorry, we're passing through. And she was like literally talking to these headstones. And like if she saw the name, she'd be like, oh yeah, that's a nice name, blah, blah, blah. And then she was like, well, if we make small talk, then we're not being disrespectful. We're at least saying hi to them. So, that's Terry's way of thinking, Yeah. So, yes. Anyway, we get to the steel thing. The gate. We take our picture, and it got a few shots. So we walked back to the van, and we decided that that was enough because it was already getting late because we'd got up at 6. We'd driven 8 hours, and then we got it. Just basically unloaded our bags, grabbed a quick bite, and then we drove another half hour to find where the camp was. Then we drove another 10 minutes to find Blairstown, New Jersey, and then another 20 minutes to find Hope, New Jersey. so we'd been in the car a long time. So this was already like, we're talking 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and we're starting to get tired. And then I was like, usually I'm an stay up all night guy. I don't get much sleep. And at this time, I was like, all right, we gotta be there by 10. So we gotta leave here by 9 because I want to get there early. We gotta get up, take our showers. I was like, so we need to get back so we can go to bed. Like a kid on Christmas, like Christmas Eve night, trying to go to bed before Santa gets there. So we did that. And then just got back, called a pizza place that we found in the book, and the guy put her on hold, but instead of pushing the hold button, he just set the phone down. So she's waiting, and I'm taking, I went and I took my shower and I got changed into my night clothes, whatever, and she's still on hold. So she calls on my cell phone, like takes a different phone, and as she's calling the phone, she can hear the phone ringing, and then she hears the guy. He just like starts going off. And he's just like, hold on a effing second. We're not effing ready. He's just like yelling at this phone call that's ringing. And Terrie was just like, what? so she was just like, yeah, no, we're not giving them our business. So she just hung up both phones. So we called a couple other places and they didn't deliver. So finally we ended up with Pizza Hut. And yeah, I'd had better. So I mean, it was cold by the time they got it to us. So, what are you going to do? But yeah, so that was night number 1, day number 1. Oh, excuse me. I'd take me a drink there. I don't think I've ever talked so much on a podcast.
No, I don't. Yeah. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So,
day number 2.
Yeah. So day number 2, we wake up early, on time, get ready. And, of course, I'm like, we were supposed to, so to back up before, the reason we ate out, there was a restaurant within this hotel. And so we said, when we get back, we'll eat dinner, because the dinner didn't shut down till 10. We got back at like 8:30. So we get back to the room, like, all right, let's go get us some dinner at the restaurant in the hotel. So we go down there and everything's locked up. So we're like, hey, we're coming to get some dinner. And the guy was like, oh yeah, our cook, our chef is sick, called in sick, so we can't open. I was like, you only got one chef? And wow. He's like, yeah. So we were like, oh, okay. so we basically went the room, back to the room, and that's how we ended up with the nasty Pizza Hut. So anyway, so we get up and they had a free breakfast. My whole selling point on getting this room was because I knew they had the free breakfast buffet. So I'm like, oh, this is gonna be sweet, because when we went to the Ohio Halloween and Haunters convention in Mansfield, the hotel that everybody stayed at had the free breakfast, and they had like bacon, eggs, biscuits, pancakes. I mean, it was like the whole setup, and it was good. So I was like, we're gonna get up, we're gonna slam some breakfast, get our fuel. So we go down there, and like all these chairs and tables are like stacked up on each other. It's one guy standing there with like brown paper lunch sacks, and he's taking like milk cups and fruit cups and like apples, and he's just throwing it in his bag. So I was like, are you effing kidding me? So we go in there, like no hot foods. It was all, it was all cold stuff. So I just turned around. I was like, we'll just go get something. So yeah. So we didn't have much luck with the food portion there at the hotel.
Yeah, I've run across that a couple of times recently myself. So
yeah, I was disappointed too, because I was hungry. I was wanting a big old plate of eggs and bacon, and then I got in there and I saw the people like walking out with these big bulky brown sacks. I was like, what are they doing? I was like, oh, they must got to go orders. And then when I walked in, I seen it. I just started laughing. I was like, no. I just turned around and walked back out. So anyway, so we get breakfast, we get everything going. We check out, and so we get to campground. So we're a couple minutes behind, as usual, because we had to stop somewhere else and get our breakfast food. So so we're running a little bit behind. So we get there, it's like 9. I wanted to be there at 9, 9:30. So half an hour early. So we get there like 9:40, and I'm like, oh, we still 20 minutes early. We're perfectly fine, So normally I'll be on edge and bitching and griping because we're running late behind my schedule that my fantasy schedule that I created. So we get there thinking we're going to be like, man, we're 20 minutes early, because it says right on your tickets, don't show up until the time of entry. So I'm like, we're 20 minutes early. We're going to be like first or second in line. And we get there and there's probably like 20 cars already lined up on that street. It's like, like we're way down the street, down the hill. So we just like parked and then, of course, Terrie's side, the side of the street we're on, the woods that was beside Terrie was the actual Camp No Be Bosco's woods. So I was teasing her, like, I was like, because there's no edges, like it's road and then dirt, there's no edges or off. So she's right by these woods. So I kept teasing her, you're right beside Jason's woods. He's going to come out and get you. And she was like nervous that she was going to die this weekend and everything. So I was teasing her about that. So anyway, it opens up, and the good thing about it, because it was sunny and beautiful Saturday,
Right.
took, with some good pictures and all this and that. Sunday, rain all day, the whole thing until the very end, like 20 minutes till the very end, and it quit raining, which it sucked because we had to wear the rain ponchos and it made it a little, awkward for pictures and whatnot. But in the other sense, it was friggin' awesome because in the movie it rained most of the time. So it kind of played, and even the camp counselor guys, the tour guides, said that they were excited too. Like they love it every time it rains because it makes it more realistic to the movie when they do the tours and all that. And and they said, that from the weekend, because they had tours like Friday, Saturday, and then we were the last one on Sunday. And they said it had been nice and sunny all of those days except for our tour. And that it was perfect that, for us, because we got to take like the pictures, and all that, to where it was raining, just like it was on the night of, the original Friday the 13th movie scene and all that. So it's raining, we get in there, we get checked in, we get our gimmicks and our wristbands and all that. So we go to the main, clubhouse patio or party patio thing. And they got like a little screen up where they got Camp Crystal Lake tour, on the screen, and they're actually going to play they actually played the Friday the 13th movie while we were doing our tour. So if you had to wait, because they broke everybody up in groups, which that was good for the social distancing. They didn't enforce mask or anything, but they did keep like everybody in groups of 12 or less to where everybody could spread out and everybody had their own ample time to do what they wanted to do. So, so they had the movie playing. So if you wanted to get out of the rain, or if you were waiting for your turn in line for the meet and greet or whatever, you could go watch Friday the 13th while you're waiting. And, they gave us like a big metal, insulated water bottle, and they had like lemonade and water and coffee and all that we could fill it up. And so, they gave us little lanyards, a lot of little free trinkets, made it kind of neat. And then we decided to sign a waiver. And that's when Terrie was like, oh yeah, I'm signing my life away. So now Jason's going to kill me. And, so we basically started the tour, and then they said, you can go to the gimmick shop, and get your gimmicks. You can go to the meet and greet, whatever group you want to go with, or you can just go, get in a group with a tour guide and start your tour. So I wanted to go to the gimmick shop the gift shop. I call it wrestling gimmick shop. so I wanted to go to the gimmick shop so I could get this license plate that's right behind me. But I wanted them to sign the license plate. I thought that'd be cool. So we get to the gimmick shop and we're waiting in line. And I only had intentions of getting one or two things. So we ended up getting like $100 worth of stuff. so my first trip to the gimmick shop was $100. So, but I did get the license plate, and I got a lot of cool items. I'll pull this down. Nobody's going to see it unless they watch the video, but I got this. This was an empty bottle. Like, remember the Angry Mother bottles and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was there. And they had ones that they filled with Crystal Lake water on Friday the 13th days. And then they had empty ones to where you could fill it yourself. So I bought an empty one. And so this is actually Camp Crystal Lake water and sand. It's kind of like a snow globe. So that's actually Camp Crystal Lake water. And yes, I know it's 40 years later, but I don't give a crap. I'm still marking out for it. And I filled it myself. So I actually filled up water and sand from Camp Crystal Lake. So yes.
Actually say it came from Camp Crystal Lake.
Yep, they actually did. And they actually said that when we do that, because they were saying you can't pick up rocks or sticks, or you can't take like stuff off the property. But they said in the case of the bottles that they encourage it. because it actually helps them, because every little bit of water and sand that somebody takes, it helps control the water levels. Because I guess there's with the lake, there's only one inlet and one outlet, and the outlet is they're having beaver problems. So that's why the water's rising on the lake, is because of the beavers. So they said, we're actually helping them out by doing that. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, I'll take some Camp Blood water. Hell yeah. Ain't got to tell me twice. So yeah. So anyway, so we got our gimmicks up, and then of course we had our gimmicks, and we're like refrigerator magnet collectors. Every town we go to, or every event or every city or whatever, we get a refrigerator magnet. So we got our magnet, and of course you gotta have a t-shirt, you got to get this, you got to get that. And then Terrie wanted postcards because she wanted to get something for them to sign. And then I got the actual picture of where Jason was coming out of the water and grabbing Alice to pull her under, that scene, the final scene. So I got a picture of that for them to both sign. And so, of course, we have that. So we got to have something to carry it in. So, we had to buy a backpack. So, like I said, long story short, it ended up being like $100 in gimmicks. That's how they get you. I was like, man, I got to take notes on this for the wrestling events. So we get our gimmicks, and then we go. And by this time, everybody's already spread out and dispersed, and we don't see like any groups. So we're like, we don't even know what group we're going to be with, or if we even going to be in a group. So I was like, Terrie's like, well, you just want to go get these signed? I'm like, yeah, might as well. So we go over and get in line, and we got in Adrienne's line first because it was shorter. And so we got up to her and got to talking with her. And she was just in a short film she was a part of a short film called Jason Rising. It's a fan film. And it's a really good, it's only like an hour long. And I'd seen that she had mentioned it on Facebook about this fan film coming out, and that she really liked it. It was really good. So I watched it. And like I said, for a fan film of Friday the 13th, it actually was good. And it kind of tied everything together without giving it away. It kind of tied their story together from part one. And, I really encourage everybody to watch it. It's called Jason Rising. And it's a Friday the 13th fan film, and it's really good. But so I watched that. So, I would have something to talk about and this and that. So we get up there and we start, small talking and this and that. And she's signing our stuff. So she asked if I had seen Jason Rising, thinking, I was going to say no. And I was like, yeah. I said, and she was like, yeah. She's like, did you like the ending? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I kind of suspected, that I don't want to give it away to a lot of people, but I kind of suspected that was going to happen because of the hashtag you made. And she was like, oh, she's like, you caught that, did you? So she was like, so there's a picture of me where she's like smiling real big and laughing. And that was what we were talking about, because I had caught her hint on the hashtag and guessed the surprise in the movie. So, I mean, she was the sweetest lady, sweet and kind. And so she signed all of our stuff. And then if you could see the license plate, like all this pink, that's all her. She almost signed like the whole front of the license plate. Wow. So she's like almost all the way done signing it. And she's like, oh crap, this is actually on video. We have on our Facebook wall too. Terrie was recording and taking pictures at the same time. So she's like, oh crap, is Ari going to sign this too? And I was like, well, yeah. She's like, oh no, he's going to kill me. She's like, we've been having like a brother-sister fight all weekend because I keep signing too much of a picture or thing, and he doesn't have no room, and then he signs stuff and I don't have no room. She's like, so don't say nothing to him, just let him see what he says, but he's going to be so mad at me. So it was like a funny moment. And she just like, instead of stopping, she just finished taking up all the space. So you can see the blue in the bottom corner. There's there's like two blue marks on the corners. That's Ari's signatures. That was all the room he had. So she signed everything, and then she was taking pictures with people, recreating, the chopping off Mrs. Voorhees' head. That's one of her famous scenes in the film, of course. And so she had like a plastic machete. So after we signed everything and we chatted for a few minutes, then we got to stand there, and she did a reenactment of chopping our heads off like she did Mrs. Voorhees. And of course, mine and Terrie's acting skills were below subpar. So we looked, totally idiotic, but it was still fun. And, now I can say, that I got my head chopped off by Alice, just like Mrs. Voorhees did. So, yeah, so we got that. So we did all that. And then we went, said goodbye to her. And I talked to her about the WrestleHorror podcast. And unfortunately, she said she doesn't do a lot of podcast interviews and stuff like that. And I really wanted to get her on because there was a real deep story about her that I wanted to try to dig into. But it was from where she was abducted and had that run in where where she almost lost her life, basically. There was a good chance it could have happened. So I wanted to kind of get that story because she was telling people in front of us about it a little bit. And I was like totally fascinated. But unfortunately, she said that she doesn't do a lot of podcasts, that she doesn't, do stuff like that very much. But she did do a shout out for us. You're going to hear it you've heard it at the beginning of this episode, I'm sure. And so, at least she was gracious enough for that. So anyway, so we go over to Ari. And if you guys have listened to the Ari, this is a funny story to me. If you listen to the previous episode where we had Ari on, and he was most down to earth, genuine, nice guy. And he had talked about where he's going to start writing music for wrestling because he's into wrestling too, and he's coming to Columbus and he wanted to shoot videos in our wrestling ring and all this and that. And you heard the whole conversation, some on air, some off air. So I'm like, I'm wearing my WrestleHorror t-shirt. I'm like, all right, Ari's going to see my shirt. He's going to recognize the logo in the podcast and remember our conversation. And we're going to have a great conversation about, horror and wrestling and the podcast and all that. So we get up to Ari and we're like, hey, what's up, Ari, da, da, da. And he's like, hey, what's happening, guys? And then I was like, I'm Donnie from, the WrestleHorror podcast. I said, we had you on a few months ago or a few weeks ago, whatever. And I said, I owned a wrestling promotion in Columbus he was asking about and said he was going to start. And he was like, oh, yeah, cool. And I was like, and you said, you were going to start writing your wrestling music and stuff. And I was just wondering if you'd gotten around to starting on that by chance. I was just curious to see what ideas you'd come up with. And he was like, wrestling music. And I was like, yeah, how First Jason, all their songs are about Jason. You said you was going to start writing wrestling songs. And he's like, wrestling songs. That's a pretty good idea. So as soon as he said that, me and Terrie just looked at each other and I'm like, yeah, he has no clue what I'm talking about. I'm like, he remembers zero about this interview.
Yeah, evidently. And he was our 100th episode interview, by the way, for that.
Yeah. And but yeah, so I kind of like after I heard that and I could tell he had no clue what I was talking about. And then because I was like, we're in Columbus, Ohio. And he was like, Columbus, Ohio. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in Columbus, Ohio soon. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's what we talked about. So I knew he was clueless. And I mean, I get it. They see tons of people every day of the week, So I got it. We thought it was like funny. Like, yeah, he has no clue what I'm talking about. so yeah, but he was like super cool. So we got pictures of him and he had the big cardboard cutout of where he was in the water, as First Jason. So we put that in front of us and then we did, pictures with him and then, so we moved on and went back up and we refilled our things. And then we were like, well, okay. We still didn't see anybody like in a group. So we kind of saw a couple people and then they had the Jeep was there. Like it was a replica. It wasn't the original. The sign that was outside on the poles was a replica. The original sign was there, but it was up in the shelter house because it was raining and they don't take it out in the rain so to where it'll get ruined. So it was in the shelter house protected. So the one that's hanging that we're standing outside with is actually a replica. Then the street signs and like all the other stuff that was there. So we took pictures with that and we did all that. And then finally we were like, hey, when does the tour start? And she's like, oh, you're fine. Just, hang out here. And then, then the tour will start. And we were like, I'm sitting there looking like, well, there's only like 4 or 5 people, standing in this area. So anyway, like 5 minutes later, of course, all these people come from, I don't know where, maybe they were like finishing up in a gimmick shop or whatever. So we get our group. So we start our tour. And if you watch the movie, you're thinking, this place is huge, because they're running through the woods, they're chasing each other, running, hiding. So you're thinking, they're running from cabin to cabin, and it takes, forever for them to get to the other cabin, it seems like. So you're thinking, this place is going to be huge. We're going to be running forever, walking forever. So we go down these big old rickety stairs, and it's slippery and wet and all that. And we get to the bottom, and right there you can see the beach, and you can see where you can see Camp Crystal Lake. So I got to my emotional moments where I was getting cold chills and I was trying to man up and not get teary eyed because like I said, this was a huge deal for me, like a lifelong dream of mine. And then I look around and I'm like, okay, cabin, shower house, cabin, and like this whole area. I mean, you could probably fit the whole scene. I mean, the lake was super big. The lake was a good size, but the cabins and everything, you could probably fit them in like a football field area. They were that close together. And I was like everything's right here. And so yeah, and they explained that they did that on purpose intentionally, because that way, back in the day it was a low budget film. They didn't have all the luxuries. So that way they didn't have to haul and chuck the camera equipment and all the stuff that they needed from, long distances. They could just move it from here to here to here. And but just, then when I saw like everything, in one eye shot to where I could just look and see everything, then it like, like again, I got chills, and I was like marking out, and I was like, I sighed inside, and Terrie was disappointed. She was like, how come you don't show emotion? She's like, I figured you'd be like jumping up and down and giddy. And I was like, I was inside. I said, I don't know. I don't show emotion like that, I guess. I said, I was like, but I was like, believe me, I was hopping, doing flip flops in my inside. So,
I'm the same way.
Yeah. So we get there, and then, and the tour guide was awesome. He was real knowledgeable, and they had like a booklet. So they took you from each scene. We started out at the main cabin, then we went to Brenda's cabin, and then Alice's cabin was toward the end. But, we went around to all the cabins, went to the shower house, and he had a booklet with like pictures and photos and diagrams. And they would tell we'd get to this scene, and he'd be like, okay, this is this cabin, this is what happened, this is where so and so died, or this is where, what happened here, this is where the kids were sleeping at the beginning of the movie, where the camera walks through the cabin, and you'd think you don't know who it is. And they basically told the story. They told a little backstory. A lot of them I already knew, like when Mrs. Voorhees got her head cut off, I knew that the head was held on with toothpicks. And so they told that story, and I knew that the hands were Tasso's and they were hairy, and I knew that story. But what I didn't know is that Betsy Palmer was upset that they used his hands, because I guess she was, like in modeling and stuff like that, and was a very, very pristine, beautiful woman. And she didn't want people thinking that her hands were hairy like that. So I guess she was actually upset at that and wanted them to cut it out, but they didn't. And so she forevermore has hairy hands, Mrs. Voorhees. But stories like that. And then they were showing like I was mentioned before, like when he was walking across that pipe and stuff, how it went underwater, and so we started doing our tour, and then we had to stop because it was time for the canoe photos. So they, said, if you bought the canoe photo, photo op, go here. If you didn't, go over here and just wait. So then, Adrienne came down, she got in the canoe, and she had on her raincoat and was all, gimmicked up so where she wouldn't get too soaking wet. But I mean, the canoe had water in it anyway, so she still got wet. So, so she got in the canoe. It was on the beach, and it was a number 6 canoe, just like the movie. It was pretty awesome. And then Ari come down, and he didn't have a raincoat on or nothing. He was wearing like black shorts, like cargo pants. And then it had a black, Jason, like hockey jersey type thing on. And so he comes down, he goes to the beach, he takes his shoes off, he takes his socks off, he takes his hat off. He's not wearing it. He's like, giving it all in and pouring rain. Me and Terrie's got our stuff on, and, Adrienne's got her stuff on. He's like taking all the stuff, and he's the lifeguard tower. There was a door and a little spot in there. So he opened it up and put his stuff inside there. And then he came over like a trooper, barefoot, soaking wet and everything. And then that's the picture you saw where we were on the beach and reenacting the final scene, one of the most iconic, scenes in horror movie history. And I got to reenact it with the 2 people that had done it and hadn't been there in 40 plus years. So, that was like another mark out moment, another Chubb moment for me. So, yeah. So I didn't want to leave my raincoat on for that, or my pull over my poncho. So I took my poncho off and just kind of balled it up and tucked it under the canoe while we were taking the picture. So I didn't, because I didn't want to be all gimmicked up with a poncho and this iconic picture that nobody really cares about but me. It's like, so we did that and took the picture, and that was great. So everybody went through. So then they ended up, taking off again, and we continued our tour. And yeah, like I said, the tour was amazing because you walk in. They try to keep it as close as possible, but a lot of the props and stuff were or of course with being 40 years ago, some of them were missing because they said every prop on the movie set was actual camp stuff, like the Monopoly game. They said it was like one of the camp counselors or camp directors, like his game. And so when he left, he probably took it with him. And, so all the props and gimmicks, a lot of them weren't there, but they said when they find stuff online that, looks like it, that they try to buy it to try to replace stuff. So like on the pictures I took, like the Monopoly game's not the original. Terrie thought this Lysol can was so cute because it was, a 40-year-old Lysol can. So she, that wasn't the original can that was in the movie. And so they recreated it the best they could. But it was just like surreal, because you see the movie and, you've been a fan of all the films and, especially Friday the 13th, the first one's like one of my favorites. And, so when you walk in and you actually see them like in person and you walk in the room and, like, holy crap, this is where blah, 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 especially the shower house. When I went to the shower house and I saw the gray curtain with the lamp when he hit the lamp with the axe and it started shaking when we were in that scene and I saw that setting, I was like, it was another like super goosebump moment. And I was just like, holy shit, this is like, I'm really here, so it was like awesome. But, yeah, they were really great. They had, groups, like there's a group of 12, but if you were like in a pair, they sent you in by yourself. So, I mean, they took their time. They didn't rush anybody. They were like, okay, you guys go ahead. And then when it was mine and Terrie's turn, they were like, all right, go ahead. So we go in, we take our pictures, we, mark out for all the stuff in there. And even Terrie, she's not a big horror fan. She's not a Friday the 13th fan, but even she had a blast. She said it was just cool to see it, being that she's seen the movies and then how the tour guides were explaining everything and telling us reenacting the movie scenes and all that. So, so we basically toured everything. So we go around the other side of the lake where there's a canoe on the other side. And apparently that's where they filmed the scene where the canoe, the final scene where it flipped over and he pulled her under. But it was like another 20, 30 yards out because the water risen, like I mentioned. So they have this setup and we never really asked them how they did it or whatever, but they had this setup to where you're, in the beach where the canoe is actually grown over now because it's on the other side of the lake and there was no like lifeguards there. So they said it for the campers and stuff. It wouldn't be a good idea to have an open beach like that for, children to go there for summer camp and, not have a lifeguard over there. So they just let it grow over through the years. But, we all had to, holler Jason's name. He's like, hey, you want to see Jason, see if Jason's really in there and, in the water still. And has he still been there all these years? And so, he counted 1, 2, 3, and all of us yelled Jason. And I'm sure they had like an air pump or something. But after we yelled Jason, like a couple seconds later, like bubbles and stuff started coming up right in front of the canoe, like in the movie. So, yeah, so it was really cool. And then they did it probably 30 seconds and everybody's taking pictures and, doing all that. So, so that was another cool moment, So, yeah, like I said, and there was other buildings that weren't in the film. Like there was an outdoor chapel and we took a picture of it. And I think I put it online, but it looks like this big old weird shaped tree house. And it was like absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was made out of all wood, like a log cabin, style wood. And I mean, it was really cool looking. So there, like I said, there was a lot of other stuff you don't see in a movie that was just, just as beautiful as the rest. So, like I said, we go around all the cabins and go into Alice's cabin. And we're on at the beginning of the film where the cop comes flying down and on the gravel road and they're pulling the tree stump over, so that we're on that road and those images pop into my head. So that was another cool moment. And they tell us a story about the guy that rode the motorcycle. The guy that played the cop actually didn't know how to ride a motorcycle. So in the movie, when he's turning around where it looks like he's slipping and sliding in the gravel, they said that was like a legit moment because he didn't know how to ride it. So he was legit like trying not to fall off. And then like in the movie, you see him drive past him, speed past him and start going up the hill. And they said right where they cut, they said cut. And then like 2 to 3 seconds later, the bike came out from under him and he fell off the bike. And it was an actual police bike. I guess the Blairstown police loaned them the bike and they dumped it. And, yeah, so that was like another kind of cool story. But yes, yeah, so we did all that and went back up to the top, and then we did our final. Then I went back to Adrienne because I asked her to do the shout out, and her handler said to wait till she's done with everybody and she'd be happy to do it. So she did, and it was great. She had fun with it. And then we kind of just did our exiting thing where we got all of our stuff, and they showed us a couple things on the way out, and then they took us to our cars and sent us on our way.
Oh, that is absolutely awesome, Donnie. And I want to thank everybody, listeners and viewers alike, for joining us on the Donnie Goes to Crystal Lake show.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what this whole show is all about.
Because this is the most Donnie has spoken in all 100 and how many episodes we're at. I've never heard Donnie talk this much.
You see like my excitement, my energy's up too. I'm talking about it.
You were seriously pumped about it. And dude, I am so happy that you got to experience that, because, we all get it. We all deserve to mark out about something.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And, you definitely marked out and just had a ball. I mean, your energy is just infectious. You're still so pumped about it.
Oh, I am. I think about it. I've thought about it every day since we've been back. And another cool thing that I just thought of was, where the lake is, like the famous shot where you see the canoe on the beach or in the water, and you see the water tower, and then you see the shot of the lake with the mountain in the background. And then so right across from that is the main cabin where they filmed the main cabin and all that. And so the main cabin, our tour guide, he's an actual camp counselor there, so he's there during the summer like 3 months straight or something like that. And he said that his office area, because right now it's all cleared out because we were doing a tour, so they took all their desk and whatever else out for us. And but the window that he sat at is in the main cabin. His little office area is in the main cabin, so when he looks out his office window, he sees that exact shot of Camp Crystal Lake. And he's like, yeah, he says, this view is my view for, 3 months out of the year. Yeah, you guys can hate me if you want. And I was like, yeah, I kind of do. So I told Terrie, I was like, which this is going to make me sound like a total weirdo. And it's probably because I am, but I don't really care. So, I mean, when I told Terrie this, I felt weird, but I was like, when I was looking at that, every time I go out onto the beach, because Terrie kind of like left me alone. Usually she talks and we communicate a lot when we're doing things, but here she just kind of like didn't say a whole lot to me. She just kind of like let me alone and let me do whatever it was I was going to do. So there was a couple times where people were taking their turns on pictures and I was just like in my own little zone. And I don't know what it was but when I was there, because like I said, it's been a childhood dream of mine, and I've fantasized about Camp Crystal Lake for so many years, being a Jason fan, that just looking out there, like my whole, it was like a calm, like an inner peace that came over me, because I'm an outdoorsy guy anyway, and I love being out in the woods because it calms me down, because my life's crazy and hectic, and stress balls everywhere, and it's nonstop. So yeah, it was like weird, I'm like, man, I'm thinking of Camp Crystal Lake, which is a notoriously horrific place where people get killed all the time, and just being at Camp Crystal Lake and actually being on the beach looking at the scene in person, it was like I was like totally, it was like all the stress, like everything just left. And that's probably the most peaceful I've actually felt probably my whole life. Like, I know it sounds weird, but it was just, and I told Terrie, I was like, I had to like stop. I was like, I was getting choked up a couple of times. I was like, I had to like tell myself to man up, I had to have Big Duke, my dad, come back into my mind and, toughen up, you pussy, because I was getting choked up, so, but like I said, it makes me sound like a weirdo, but I mean, honestly, and I told Terrie, I said, if I could figure out a way to like run an internet business and live here on this camp to where I could just sit here every day and just stare out at this scene, I was like, I could live like this forever. And she was just like, yeah, I like outdoors, but not so much. But yeah, so yeah, like I said that, but when he said that, like, yeah, this is my view every day, I was like, man, you suck. I was like, that's awesome.
Well, I'm really happy that you got to do that. And you found out about it because we had Ari Lehman on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. I had heard about it before, but I really never like looked into it because I never really pursued it and was like, yeah, I'm going to hunt this down and find out where all the details. But once we had him on and he talked about it, and he said that him and Adrienne was going to be there, and it's the first time they'd been together at Camp Crystal Lake in over 40 years since they filmed it. Then I was like, if I'm going to do it, then, this will be the time to do it. And, now I found out we got to go back, I have to go back again because we took the meet and greet tour, which was basically all the cabins around the lake and the lake itself and all this and that. And then we did the meet and greet. But when you do the extended tour, they have an extended tour when they don't have like the actors or guests there. And the extended tour is where they take you to the archery range. So we didn't get to see the archery range, and we didn't get to see the barn where the first kill happened up in the loft. We didn't get to go there. And I even asked him at the end, I was like, hey, where's the archery range? Because I was wanting to go see that, because that was a pivotal part in the movie too. And he's like, well, and I guess that's like a far away because the Camp Novi Bosco is like super huge, and it's a lot bigger than just that little condensed area. So he's like, the archery is up this mountain. You got to hike up this mountain and go over, and it's down on the other side around there. And he's like, so it's a ways. He said, but with the meet and greet, he said, we don't show that part because that takes more time. So he said, that's part of the extended stay or the extended tour. So of course I told Terrie, I was like, well, we got to come back. I was like, I got to go see the archery in the barn because I had it all mapped out. I was going to get my phone out and I was going to record the actual shot of walking up the stairs to the barn, up to the loft, just like they did in the movie. And I was going to reenact that and everything. And then I was just like disappointed, that was the only thing I got disappointed about, but it, it made sense after he explained it. So, so now I got to go back, dang it, got to make another trip.
Darn.
Yeah, well, darn. I got to plan another one.
Well, Donnie, I got to go eat.
Yes, I'm the same way. I don't wear myself out talking so much.
But let me tell you, I want to thank you for enlightening us about this. I mean, it sounds like you had an awesome time.
Oh, yeah.
And if people get the chance to go, they obviously should.
Oh, yeah. If you're any kind of a Friday the 13th fan of any kind, you need to go because it was an amazing tour. The tour guides and the camp counselors were great. What I didn't mention real quick before we get off here is all the ticket sales and all that goes to the camp so they can grow it. Because a lot of the cabins have like one of the cabins that was on the beach scene had actually went underwater. So they lost that cabin. 3 other cabins have gone. So they're using the money from all the ticket sales to, rebuild the camp and for the Boy Scouts and all that. And then also like when you take pictures and all that, there's a bucket you donate. There's a camp down the road where kids with cancer go to, and it's a whole camp for cancer kids. So they've raised, over $30-some thousand by doing that for the kids down the road at the camp down there. So it's all for a good cause. And and if you're any kind of Jason fan or a Friday the 13th fan of any kind, I'd highly recommend it. If there's a waiting list, so you got to catch it at the right time. But it's Camp Crystal Lake, or it's crystallaketours.com is where it is, and you can get on the waiting list and they'll let you know when it's open and available. Because that's how I found out. I got the email, and then we had Ari on that same day, and he told me about it. So like I said, I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Well, for myself, Meathook Jim, and my co-host Donnie Jason Voorhees Hoover,
right?
We hope you've enjoyed this enlightening thing about the Crystal Lake tours and Donnie's over exuberance, which is infectious.
Oh yeah.
And we will catch you on the next episode.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media outlets: Facebook.com/WrestleHorror, Instagram @WrestleHorror, Twitter @WrestleHorror, on YouTube at the WrestleHorror channel. And you can also find us on our website, www.WrestleHorror.com.